You just woke up to the biggest early shake from the front office. The team locked up one of their most important in-house free agents, and that single move suddenly changes the way the whole offseason plays out. Let me break it down straight. This isn't just a signing on paper, it's a clearing of the fog. When you know exactly what's on the books at one position, you stop guessing and you start planning. The mystery salary that used to sit in the back of the GM's head is gone, and that gives the staff flexibility to focus on real decisions. Do we spend on the offensive line now, chase a wideout in free agency, or double down on in-house pieces? It's the difference between reacting and executing. If you're the kind of fan who wants to see smart, prioritized moves, not splashy headline chasing, this is the kind of first domino you want to fall. Quickly, if you're enjoying this breakdown, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the follow-ups where we map every dollar and decision. Also, in the comments, give me a quick yes or no. Were you expecting the front office to prioritize this over adding a receiver? I want your take, short and sharp. Let's talk numbers in plain terms without the cap speak overload. The contract that was announced includes a multi-year commitment and a solid chunk of guaranteed money. That guaranteed portion is the headline because guaranteed cash is what truly affects decisions. By guaranteeing that money, the team signals two things. They believe this player is a solved problem at his position, and they believe his value is worth keeping rather than gambling on the market. For you watching as the Daily Niners fan, the practical result is this: fewer sleepless nights about other teams swooping in, and a clearer map for how to allocate the remaining salary space. That clarity matters in March and April when calls come in and offers land on the table. It's also worth noting that doing this early sends a message to the rest of the roster and to the league. The organization is not sitting back, they're moving with purpose. Beyond the bookkeeping, there's the human and locker room side. Bringing back a reliable, calm presence at a position that can swing games provides stability to coaches and to the quarterback. When the staff trusts the leg, they make different fourth down decisions late. They play with the field position tools differently, and that small change compounds across the schedule. Think of it like a foundation piece. You don't hear about the foundation in the highlight reel, but when it's solid, everything above it operates at a higher level. That's what this signing buys the team: operational confidence. Quick question for you. Was there a single kicker moment that made you breathe easier and trust this kicker? Drop the game and the clock time in the comments. I'll read the best ones in the next video. Finally, on momentum and optics, getting this done before the off-season frenzy hits shows the front office is proactive rather than reactive. That's huge for morale and for recruiting. Other free agents watch a team's behavior. When they see an organized approach, they notice. It's not just one player staying, it's a public signal that the leadership has a plan. That changes how potential targets view the franchise, which in turn can tilt decisions in your favor. As we roll into the next chapter, we'll dive into exactly how this player's on-field performance created that urgency. The stats, the clutch moments, and the special teams turnaround that made keeping him a no-brainer. Ready to get into the numbers and those game-changing kicks? If so, hit that like button and keep your eyes on the comments. The reason this move felt so urgent to the front office really comes down to one thing: performance. When you look at what this player did on the field, it wasn't just good. It was the kind of season that forces a team to make a decision quickly before someone else does. The numbers alone tell a powerful story. Hitting 28 out of 29 field goal attempts in a season is not just solid, it's elite-level accuracy. And the only miss came on a 64-yard attempt, which honestly says more about confidence than failure. That kind of consistency is exactly what the team had been searching for since the days of Robbie Gould. For years after Gould's departure, the kicking situation felt unsettled. There were flashes of promise, moments where it looked like the answer had been found, especially with Jake Moody early on. But the reality is the coaching staff needed reliability, not flashes. And reliability is exactly what they got from Eddie Pinheiro. What made Pinheiro's season even more impressive is how it started. He wasn't even part of the initial 53-man roster. Think about that for a second. This is a player who came in during the season, stepped into a pressure situation, and immediately stabilized one of the most unpredictable positions in football. There's no adjustment, period, for kickers in the NFL. You either deliver in high-pressure moments or you're looking for your next opportunity somewhere else. Pinheiro stepped into that spotlight and looked like he had been there all along. When fans talk about the difference between a good team and a championship-level team, this is exactly the type of detail they mean. The margin between winning and losing often comes down to 3 points, and having a kicker you trust changes how an entire game unfolds. Now here's something that doesn't get talked about enough: the ripple effect on special teams as a whole. When the team's special teams unit finished near the top of the league in efficiency, it wasn't just coincidence. It was the result of several pieces coming together: the coaching adjustments, the veteran presence of punter Thomas Morstead, the work of the long snapper, and the accuracy of the kicker. But if you remove the reliability at the end of those drives, the numbers start to look very different. A field goal unit that consistently converts points turns good drives into scoring drives, and that's a massive swing over the course of a season. The year before, special teams struggled. In fact, the unit had ranked at the bottom of the league. Then suddenly it jumps near the top. That's not just improvement, that's transformation. And if you watched the games, you probably remember the moment that really cemented the trust between the player and the fan base. The walk-off kick in. His first home appearance was one of those moments where you could feel the entire stadium exhale at once. Those moments matter. They build confidence not only in the player, but also in the coaching staff calling the game. When the offense stalls near the edge of field goal range, the coaches don't panic. They know they have a reliable option waiting on the sideline. That reliability also changes how opponents defend late in games. Defenses know that if they give up just a few extra yards, the offense might already be in scoring territory. That creates pressure, and pressure leads to mistakes. It's a subtle advantage, but in the NFL, subtle advantages often determine playoff positioning. And here's something else that makes this story even better. The player himself is hungry for more. After the extension was announced, he shared a message expressing gratitude to the organization and excitement about continuing the journey. That attitude matters. Players who feel like they were given a second opportunity often play with something to prove, and that energy can carry into the locker room. Instead of being satisfied with a great season, the mindset is about getting even better. Let me ask you something here, because I'm curious what the faithful really think about this. Do you believe this season was just the beginning? Or do you think it will be tough to repeat numbers like 28 out of 29? Type repeat if you think he can match it, or type regression if you think those numbers are nearly impossible to hit again. I want to see where you land on that. Now, before we move forward, quick message to everyone watching right now, especially the real ones who are here every video. This channel is built for the faithful, and the goal is to hit 2,000 subscribers as fast as possible so we can bring even bigger coverage for this community. If you want to help push the channel forward, you can use the super thanks or hype feature below the video. Think of it like fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. Every bit goes right back into improving the content, the research, and the production, so this community gets the best Niners coverage possible. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to do it. And turn on notifications so you never miss the next breaking update. Because while this move solved one major question, it immediately raises another one that could reshape the rest of the offseason. Once the team locks down a key piece like this, the next domino becomes obvious. What happens with the rest of the in-house free agents? There are still several names the front office has to evaluate carefully, including wide receiver Jauan Jennings and a few other contributors who played meaningful roles last season. Some of them might return, some might test the market, and some might be replaced entirely depending on the cap math. And that's where things get really interesting, because this one signing doesn't just secure a position, it reshapes the financial puzzle the front office is trying to solve. In the next part, we're going to dig into exactly what this deal means for the rest of the roster, which players could be next in line for a contract, and which ones might be on their way out as the team reshapes the roster for another Super Bowl push. Now that this move is locked in, the conversation naturally shifts to the bigger picture. Because when the front office secures one key piece early in the offseason, it isn't just about that single position. It reshapes the financial puzzle for the entire roster. The moment the contract numbers become clear, the front office can start mapping out what comes next. And that's where things start to get really interesting for the San Francisco 49ers. Think about how an NFL offseason works for a second. Every team is juggling a limited salary cap while trying to improve the roster. Some teams throw money everywhere and hope it works out. But the smarter approach is identifying the positions that are already solved and then allocating the remaining money where it's truly needed. By bringing back Eddie Pinheiro, the front office essentially checked one box off the list early. They no longer have to worry about losing a reliable kicker to another team offering a bigger contract. That clarity frees them up to focus on positions that could actually define how the season unfolds. And when you look at the roster, a few decisions immediately stand out. One of the biggest names fans have been watching is wide receiver Jauan Jennings. Jennings has been one of those players who brings toughness and energy to the offense. He's the type of receiver who isn't always the headline guy, but constantly makes important plays when the team needs them most. Third down conversions, physical blocking, clutch catches. That's been his calling card. But the reality of the NFL is that role players who perform well eventually earn bigger contracts, and sometimes those deals come from other teams. If the front office wanted Jennings back badly enough, there's a strong chance the deal would already be done. That's not a guarantee he's leaving, but it does suggest that negotiations may be complicated. Maybe the price tag is higher than expected. Maybe the team believes it can find similar production elsewhere. Or maybe they're simply prioritizing other positions first. This is the kind of behind-the-scenes strategy that fans rarely see, but that ultimately shapes the roster. And Jennings isn't the only name to watch. There are several contributors whose futures remain uncertain. Some were important pieces on offense, while others played key roles on special teams. One of the interesting situations involves punter Thomas Morstead. Morstead brought veteran stability to the special teams unit and helped elevate that group's overall performance. But he's approaching 40 years old, which puts the front office in a tricky spot. Do you bring back the veteran who played well, or do you start planning for the future with a younger option? That's a classic roster-building dilemma. Experience versus long-term planning. Stability versus potential upside. And decisions like that can quietly shape an entire season. If the special teams unit stays strong, it can flip field position and create hidden advantages every week. If it regresses, suddenly the offense and defense have to work harder just to maintain the same results. Another layer to this discussion is how the team chooses to use the rest of its available cap space. Now that one of the key contracts is settled, the front office has a clearer view of how much money remains. That opens the door to two possible strategies. The first option is reinvesting that money into the players already on the roster, keeping the core intact and rewarding the contributors who helped build the team's identity. The second option is looking outside the building and targeting free agents who could elevate the roster in areas of need. And if you've been following the conversations around the league, two positions come up again and again when people talk about what the team still needs: offensive line and wide receiver depth. Protecting the quarterback is always priority number one in today's NFL, and adding another reliable target in the passing game could help take pressure off the top playmakers. So here's where I want to hear from you, because if you were sitting in the general manager's chair for 5 minutes, this would be the big decision. Would you spend the remaining cap space on re-signing your own players, or would you go hunting for outside talent in free agency? Type "keep the core" if you'd focus on bringing back familiar names, or type "add weapons" if you'd rather see the team chase new talent on the market. Because this is exactly the moment where an offseason can take two very different paths. One path focuses on continuity, keeping the locker room chemistry intact and trusting the system that already works. The other path is more aggressive, bringing in new pieces that could raise the ceiling of the roster. And that leads us to the biggest question of all. What does this move actually say about the team's long-term plan? Because bringing back a key player early isn't just about the present. It's often a signal of how the front office intends to build the roster moving forward. In the final chapter, we're going to zoom out and look at the full roadmap ahead, what positions the team is most likely to attack next, how this signing affects the strategy for the rest of the offseason, and why this move might be the first step in a much bigger push toward another Super Bowl run. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, this move starts to feel less like a simple contract and more like the opening move of the offseason chess match. The front office of the San Francisco 49ers didn't just bring back a player. They removed uncertainty from a position that has quietly decided a lot of NFL games over the years. When you know the kicking situation is stable, it simplifies everything else. It allows the coaching staff to call games with confidence. It gives the offense clarity when drives stall near scoring range, and it prevents the kind of late-season panic that teams sometimes experience when a position suddenly becomes unreliable. And the timing matters. Making this move before the market really heats up signals that the organization wants control over the direction of the offseason rather than reacting to it. The moment free agency opens, teams across the league start competing for the same players, and prices can rise quickly. By taking care of one of their own early, the front office avoided that situation completely. They didn't have to enter a bidding war. They didn't have to wait and see what other teams might offer. They simply handled their business and moved forward. What this also tells you is that the organization values stability in the small details of the roster. Fans often focus on star players, quarterbacks, pass rushers, wide receivers. And those positions absolutely matter. But championship teams are usually the ones that eliminate weaknesses across the entire roster. That means solid offensive line play, reliable special teams, dependable role players, and coaching staffs that understand how to maximize each piece. And that's where bringing back Eddie Pinheiro becomes more important than it might look at first glance. When you go through a season where a kicker hits nearly every attempt, it quietly changes the way the team operates. Drives that end near midfield can still produce points. Late-game situations become less stressful, and the offense knows that if they gain just a few more yards, they might already be in scoring territory. Those small strategic advantages add up across a full season. Of course, this signing doesn't solve every question the roster still has. There are still positions that will demand attention as the offseason continues. Depth along the offensive line is always a priority, especially in a league where pass rushers are faster and more explosive every year. Wide receiver depth could also become a storyline depending on how the situation develops with players like Jawan Jennings. If he returns, the team keeps a physical and dependable target who thrives in tough situations. If he leaves, the front office will need to find another receiver who can fill that role. Special teams could also see one more important decision depending on what happens with veteran punter Thomas Morstead. Morstead's experience helped stabilize that unit last season, but age and long-term planning always play a role in roster decisions. The team could decide to bring him back for continuity, or they might begin preparing for the future at that position as well. So the off-season roadmap starts to come into focus. one position locked down. Several key decisions still ahead, and the flexibility to pursue upgrades where the roster needs them most. That's exactly the position you want your team to be in before the biggest wave of roster movement begins. Now let me ask you the question that really defines this entire conversation. Do you believe this move is the first step toward another deep playoff run? Or do you think the team still needs several more major upgrades before they can truly compete for the Super Bowl? Drop your answer in the comments and explain your reasoning. I always read through your takes, and some of the best ones end up shaping future videos. And before we wrap this up, a quick message to the real ones who are here supporting the channel and helping it grow. This community is built around the faithful, and the mission right now is to reach 2,000 subscribers so we can keep expanding the coverage, improving production, and bringing you the fastest and most detailed Niners updates possible. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. And if you want to go one step further in supporting the channel, you can use the Super Thanks or Hype feature right below the video. Think of it as fueling the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. Every bit of support goes directly into improving the content for this community. Better research, better production, and more coverage of the team we all care about. Because the truth is, this offseason is just getting started. One major piece is already secured, and now the next dominoes are waiting to fall. The front office still has decisions to make, free agents to evaluate, and potential targets across the league who could reshape the roster. And if the early move we just talked about is any indication, the team isn't planning to sit back and watch the rest of the league get better. They're planning to be part of the action. Before we move on, tell me this in the comments using just 3 words. Your bold prediction for the upcoming season.